everyone. Today we have Karen Bateson on, and she is such a good friend of mine, and I'm so excited to have her on. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. So we're going to start with a quick prayer, and then we'll just jump into the conversation.
Okay.
All right. Father, I thank you so much for Karen. I thank you for giving her the confidence and the ability to come on this podcast and have this conversation with me. Father, I pray that you would bless all the words that we share today. And I pray that this podcast would bless someone who is listening. Father, minimize us and maximize who you are. May your glory shine through. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of backstory. Karen is she's one of my first friends that I made when moving to Charlotte. It was the funniest thing because she's also the one that invited me to e-groups. And so I constantly talk about community and the importance of community on here. And so this is like, you are the prime example of what I'm always talking about, is how you need to get around amazing people that can help you build your faith and just go through life with you. And I think something that is so amazing is that when we first met, we met at church at like ladies' night. And then you were like, we need to hang out. Let's go to dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then at dinner, you invite me to e-group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then when I show up to e-group, like randomly, like 2 months later.
It was a long time, in my defense, at the end of the story. Let's clarify that. Okay, go ahead.
So after
call me out. Started off with calling me out. It's cool.
It's cute. It's a cute story. So after about 2 months, I go to e-group, and there's another person in e-group that also invited me. That's a really good friend, and I don't even know. We were like, just like, oh, how'd you find this e-group? And you're like, how did you find this e-group? I'm like, you invited me and completely forgot.
I did completely forget. Okay. To clarify, I had led e-groups for 10 years. So this was the first e-group that I was actually a part of, like not leading in like 10 years. And so it was a little bit different for me. And this group that I joined was established, and I was trying to find my place, and no two people showed up at this. Like, I was there every other
that's true.
And no two people showed up at the same time. So everybody started looking alike. I'm not going to lie. Because you never knew who was going to show up. I knew you, but I just assumed you'd been at e-group a few weeks ago. And then they said you were new. I was like, but I know her. Like, I was just utterly confused. I'm not going to lie. I was just confused.
Well, I just appreciate the invitation, because this is the e-group that I have stuck with. And
yes,
I think it's been over a year at this point.
Oh, it's been more than that.
So it's been a year. So this was a good place for me to be. So I appreciate you.
It was good. I mean, God's always in control. So he was just, doesn't say we're sane, but
exactly.
It's in control. So
No. Exactly. It's for two people that I met in different situations to invite me to the same group. This is where I was supposed to be.
Just me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about e-group, because I completely forgot that you were an e-group leader.
Oh, a long time.
So what made you become an e-group leader?
Oh, we started at Elevation a very long time ago. So I was raised Catholic, never understood it. Never understood. Still to this day. Not understand Catholicism. So that's just me. My parents, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. That's a whole nother story. But try to understand kind of where they're coming from. It was one of those things. But I just never got it. But my parents sent me to an Christian athletic camp when it was called Summer's Best 2 Weeks in Boswell, Pennsylvania. Best experience of my childhood. Like I went for I think it was like 10 years, and it was 2 weeks, the same 2 weeks every summer. So I saw that there was a different kind of faith outside of Catholicism, and I will be forever grateful to my parents for that. So we moved back to Charlotte in 2008, and I decided that I wanted to find a church, and I had no idea what I was looking for. And it was a journey. And so I had neighbors. Actually, one of the founding families of Elevation lived in my neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had a couple neighborhoods who invited me. One I just talked to today, still one of my very best friends. who was my first e-group leader when e-groups first started. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
one of the first e-groups ever, not leading. But anyway, so my oldest said, we need to go volunteer. And I was like, okay. So we went, because when Blakeney opened, I decided to try opening weekend and we've never left. Like, so that's when we started because it was a mile up the road. Like it was in the neighborhood. So, from where we were living at the time. And then I was first part of and mind you, I'm Catholic. I don't know how to pray. Like, they tell you how to pray. You don't know how to pray. And so I didn't know the Bible because they do the same thing, 52, like, I only know 52 verses because they do the same 52 every. So, we started, and then I started volunteering on the care team, which is like pray for people. And I didn't know, that scared me. I didn't do that for very long. And then I don't remember, I did something else. And then I ended up in EHQ. EHQ for a long time. And then decided to step back from that because it was just, because Ballantyne opened and I didn't move over there. And so I stepped back from like the weekly volunteering. And then that's somehow ended up an e-group leader.
So when you became an e-group leader, what did that do as far as your faith goes? Because you did start off as Catholic. So how did that help grow you?
Oh, exponentially. Like, because I realized, okay, so going way back, like, this is like childhood. I knew I was a leader from, like, internally, I always knew I was a leader. Like, but I don't know what it is about my personality, but like my dad, bosses, people just felt like they needed to like take care of me. And I finally just started giving in. I mean, even my boss today, like my husband and my boss, like I work together with them and they still just kind of like, and I'm like, no, like I don't. So this gave me the opportunity to kind of start realizing that I did have things to say of value and that people were willing to listen and I could lead a group. And I'm not good at it. I'm not a good e-group leader because I don't do the follow-up and the touchy-feely stuff. Like I meet and I will help you with your faith and I'll do things, but all like the parties and the touchy, I sucked at that. I was bad, so if you need some faith help, I'm there. But like all the extra stuff, yeah, I wasn't good. I wasn't good at it, but they kept letting me do it. So, I don't know. So, yeah, so I did it for even through COVID. Actually, I went to the hospital today to visit a friend who's in the hospital in Matthews, who was one of my e-group members during COVID. Like, we didn't even meet in person until a long time after we knew each other. And it's led to really amazing friendships. And it just taught me that I did have things of value to say. And that was a big part of it. So it just started that journey of recognizing that I had value. Frankly.
Yeah, I do like that. So e-groups aren't exactly the same thing as a Bible study, even though some e-groups do Bible study.
Yes.
And I think the special thing about our e-group and what made me feel so at home is the fact that everybody gets a time to speak. It's not just about one person telling everybody about the Bible or about their week or giving all the examples. It's very much everyone join in and you take a turn, you take a turn and all that kind of stuff. So it makes you feel very included, not like you're just sitting in a classroom kind of environment. Right. And so I actually love that. And I think that's one of the best things that came out of e-group for me is the fact that I've cultivated so many relationships with people that I never would have probably met. I get grabbed by so many people when I go to church and they grab me into hugs before I even realize who they are. And sometimes I haven't seen them in so long and they're like, hey, and I'm like, I know you, but I don't know you. And so I'm trying to jog my
example of that. Hello.
That's true. But at the same time, it's nice because it gets me, you go in it. Sometimes I walk into church and I'm like, it's like I have blinders on because I'm just like, I like to sit in a certain spot and I need a chair that's open next to me so I can spread all my stuff out. And like, because I swear they pack us in like sardines. That is the one issue that I have going into the church is like, I can't move and it gets really hot. This Sunday, I actually got up and because I was packed in and it got hot and everybody's like, it's cold outside. So everybody had sweaters on. Yeah. It's like a hot box.
Well, you
so
understand.
I moved and sat somewhere else.
Yeah, well, and you have to understand that back in the day, there were no extra seats.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is so, I mean, I've been doing this for, 15 years now, whatever, and I think that's, so back, like, in Blakeney, if you didn't get there 45 minutes early, and it's still like that at Ballantyne, I guess, but if you don't get there 45 minutes early, and you didn't stand in line, you didn't get a seat.
Oh, facts.
So I think, so the way the church was organized was you fill every seat. And so I think that's just some of the original ways of doing things have just stuck.
Yeah, I just met one of the, I guess, I don't know if they're volunteers, but we used to call them ushers that are in the aisles telling you where to go sit. I just made friends with one. So I'm like, as soon as it starts, I'm like, can I go sit back there? And he's like, yeah, go. Yeah. And so he laughs because every Sunday I like have my Bible and my notebook and everything's like out. My coffee's in my hand. And I'm just like, okay, now I'm ready.
Yeah. I know. And and these days, since my husband can't do the music because he has Meniere's disease. And so when we do go to campus, which is not as often as I'd like because Sunday is the only day we have together. And so we'll sneak in just for the sermon. And so we'll just sneak in and sit in the back. So I don't do very rarely do the whole usher thing and the whole, but yeah. So, and it's, yeah. But
yeah. But I love that Elevation. I think one of the best things about that church is that it really wants people to be involved. I was involved in church when I was in high school, then had a bad experience, and I was just like, I'm hands off. Like, I'll come on Sunday, but yeah, I'm not interacting with anybody. I came and I left. And then through college, I went through that whole scene of like, I went to church every once in a while, kind of stepped away from my faith. But then when I hit my 20s and went through divorce and all that kind of stuff, then I was like, oh, I need to be in church. Yeah. And so I had not been active in a church in years. And so this is now I'm dipping my toe back into like e-group leadership, and I'm following kind of a bit of your lead. Yeah. You started all this by inviting me to this group.
You're welcome.
It's your fault. But
I'll take that call. I'll take that call every day.
But I mean, like, you've really opened a door for me to help me grow my faith and actually step out of my comfort zone. So I just hosted the prayer night not too long ago, which is completely out of my element. So I love how e-group kind of, I don't want to say forces, I don't think that's the right word, but it encourages you to try new things.
Opportunity.
It gives you exactly.
It has the opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So it gives me the opportunity to try new things and to step into spaces and do things that I've never even thought that I would do, and actually realize how much I love it. I love talking about my faith. I love praying over people. I love doing all those things. And this platform gives me the ability to talk to everybody that watches about my faith. But also e-group is my other outlet because I'm always texting with people in the group and praying over people. And it fills me up. It's a very good feeling to be able to bless somebody with a gift that you've been given.
And, I think that in our situation, and I know this is going to be everywhere, in our situation, our church is I don't think it's unique in that it's a very large church, except for the fact that I would go, even early on, I would go to my in-laws' church in Findlay, Ohio, and they were playing Elevation music. I mean, this was years ago. Years ago when it was like fascinating, and people have heard of our pastor. Like, it's like, but what it does and what it's done for me from the beginning is it makes a humongous church, an international church, personal. And it keeps a humongous church that is having outstanding impact on our city and on our world and on outreach and everything that we do, but it keeps it personal, keeps it small. And that's what e-groups mean to me, is that it just makes sure that we have that personal touch. And so actually I stepped out of the e-group leader role, and this is kind of funny because I was trying to figure out people just were not showing up. Mm-hmm. It just had run its course in my life. Everything has a season, but I didn't want to leave the women that were in my group hanging. I didn't want to just leave them without anywhere to go. And so there was an e-group push coming up. And so Dewana Jones actually called me because she was the new care team leader. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I was sitting in the family room with Kent, and she called, and I was like, hello. She said, oh, my name is Dewana, and I'm your e-group's care team leader. And I was like, I said, literally, thank God you called because I need to get out of this. And she was like, I'm sorry, what? And, I didn't know her at all. She was like, okay. And she said, well, I have an idea. And I said, okay. She's like, well, since you have all this experience, what if you joined the care team? And I was like, and I looked at my husband, and my husband does not say stuff like this. He said, well, you've been praying for a solution. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, and that's where I met Wanda. And that's where it all, like, that's how it all, and then that leads us to you. Because there's always a path. There's always a path of where you're supposed to go. And that's what I've learned is that you have to trust always. You like, yeah. So it's all like this path. So
I think that's beautiful. And that's actually very true. Mm-hmm. Even outside of e-group, the people that I've met in e-group have influenced my life and been a part of my path outside of the church. So I think that is an amazing thing. And the fact that even the other group that I was in led me to meet so many other people that I'm still attached to. So, I mean, you're exactly right. I think, honestly, that's you probably said it the best way you could probably pretty much say it. Like, I'm like, I don't want to mince words, but I mean, like you pretty much called it out. But I also want to say, so with e-groups, I love the structure that it gives you. I know at the campus that we're at, they don't play when it comes to e-group, and there's like a process that you need to go through because you are dealing with people who are in all different levels of their faith and things like that. What was it like? So in your group, did you have people that were new to their faith?
Oh my gosh, I had so many groups. Because they all, like, it just, one led into the other. They bled into another, and it's just, and I can't keep them all straight. But yes, I mean, they were all different levels, but it's always just I always did sermon studies, and we tried to do book studies. Book studies never worked. Like, we are busy women. We don't, no. Oh my gosh, nobody ever read. And that's, I mean, it's fine, because we would still go through the questions, and Elevation's great about making the questions poignant to a conversation, whether you've done the reading or not. So I stopped doing book studies. I just stopped leading book studies because we're busy women. We just don't have time to sit down and read, let alone try to get together that was weekly at that, it was just, but yeah, there were always different people. And and there were different levels, in like my friend that I was going to visit in the hospital today, she has gone through a whole cycle, and it's just so cool because, I frankly, it was during COVID, and it was just people on a screen. I'd never met these people in person, and I frankly didn't remember her. She remembered me because I had an impact on her life as her leader, which was very poignant to me, and we've become lifelong friends, but no doubt, but it's just like at first, it just became, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to kind of step away, because if everybody's looking the same, then you don't know how much of an impact you're having. You get to make that separation. So, but always a different level, always life talk. We always did sermon studies. I tried to do sermon studies as much as possible because, and it was a progression, because I would do Mondays, but then, you're doing the sermon on Monday or Sunday and then talking about it Monday, and then the rest of the week you're floundering. And so, then I started doing Wednesdays because at least it was a mid-week touch, and just, this transpires. And it's just doing life together, and it's doing faith together, and it's just everybody, because I heard something just recently that I don't even know what it was, but and this is what I've learned through leading e-groups and being in e-groups and being in a church that you actually talk about faith and Jesus and God, not, the church I was raised in. And, I mean, go Catholics, you do your thing, no offense, but it just wasn't for me. I mean, everybody, it's not one God, but it just depends on, your relationship. But I found that what I learned is that things that we say have an impact on different people in a different way. And it's just like, I can say something, and it's like when we were raised with siblings, or just being raised. Like, there are things that I'll talk to my mom and I'll say, oh, I remember this time. There's a stupid story about a towel. It's just a dumb story, but it was very poignant to me. And she doesn't even remember it. Like, it was devastating to me, and she doesn't even remember it. And so it's just
Yeah.
things that happen in our lives that I can say something or somebody can say something to me that
Mm-hmm.
it was offhanded to them, but changed my perspective completely.
Yes.
And so I took it, I realized what a responsibility it was to lead these groups because I was learning, I've been learning because I started Elevation when I was probably a year sober. So I moved back to Charlotte when I was 3 months sober and just learning who I was. And then I start leading these people because my concept of God was through AA as much as anything. And I literally filled out the first time I went to EHQ, I filled out a piece of paper and it asked me about small groups or asked me about something. And I said, AA is my small group. I literally filled it out and said, AA is my small group because I
Mm-hmm.
was still trying to figure out, learn who I was through that and the step of, like learning my concept of God as I understand him. And so that was that's, and I still feel that way. I feel like my relationship with my higher power, whom I choose to call God, and that's an AA thing for, but he is the one that created me. He is my father, my first father.
Yeah.
but
Yeah. You're, take your time.
So he has a plan for me that's best for me. And there's nothing that happens without a reason or a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's a one-on-one relationship with my higher power. My faith is going to be different than your faith. We go to the same church, we go to the same group, we hear the
Mm-hmm.
same things. But my faith, based on the wiring in my brain, the experiences I've had, the conversations I had today, let alone 10 years ago, I'm going to hear things differently than say you hear them. We can be in the same class for 20 years, but
Mm-hmm.
because of the way our brains are wired, because God made us all individually different.
Yes.
No two people, we're all snowflakes. It doesn't matter if we have the same genetics, you know, go science wise, and there's, your genetics, you're built differently. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
two parents, but I mean, my two kids can't be more different if, like, I picked them out of a litter of, like, different breeds. I mean, they're completely different. And so, because God weaves us individually,
Yes.
and so my faith is not going to be the same as your faith. My faith is not going to be the same as my kids or my husband or my sister or my brother, my parent. Like, it's not going to be the same. It's one God, but he made us all different, so we're not going to understand it the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so my concept of God is going to be different than anybody else I meet because of how I was made, how my brain is wired, my experience, my 16 years in AA, like those experiences, like all the Catholic school, all that stuff, that my camp, the Christian Athletic Camp where I gave my life to Jesus and sat on a blanket in front of cabin 4, between water skiing and gymnastics, that's just how we did it. And just so all of those experiences are put into this ball of my life, and it's not gonna, my ball's not going to roll the same as your ball. It's just going to be different.
Yeah.
And so it is a one-on-one personal relationship with God. Because
Absolutely.
my relationship with my parents is not the same as my sisters or my brothers. It's like, and my husband's a twin, and he's like couldn't be more opposite than his sister. So faith is, I think, for me,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're talking about. Faith is something that gives me solace. I'm a very tactile, creative person, but it gives me, the day that I turn my will and my life over to the care of God fully, and that's step 3 in AA. And I remember because my husband was in ironically, I was 3 years sober, and he was hit head on by a drunk driver at midnight. And I didn't get the call because I was trying to wait up for him. It's a whole story. I was trying to wait up for him, so I had just fallen asleep, that deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't hear the phone ring, and he was with it enough to wouldn't let the nurses call. Like, he called me, so I knew he was alive, but I had to drive to Gastonia. So I called my mom. She didn't answer. This is at 1:30 in the morning, 1:15ish on a Saturday morning. And she didn't answer, so I called my best friend, and she answered because I just needed somebody to know the kids were in the house alone. And they were Alex was 16, so Jonah was 12. And then I woke up Alex and just said, Daddy was in an accident. I've spoken to him. And that by that time, my dad had answered the phone. I said, Grandpa and Auntie Jen know you're here, but I'm leaving. And so I was driving down the highway at 2:00 in the morning between Charlotte and Gastonia, and I just said, this terrible Ford Taurus that I hated, and I just and I just said, okay, God, I cannot do this. I don't know what I'm walking into. I don't know what's coming next. I cannot do this. You're either going to have to do it with me or do it for me, because I can't do this. And he did. And so, and it was okay. And we got through it. And it was literally life-changing. Like, for our physical lives, my spiritual life, it was literally life-changing. But that's when I just gave up all control. I just gave it up. I do the work and leave the results up to God. And so,
I love that.
Yeah. And that's,
you always have these good sayings. I do the work and I leave it up to God.
Yeah. And that's just the only way you can do it, because you can't sit back. I mean, I'm not going to sit on the couch with my feet up and go, oh, God, I'll take care of it. No. He's busy. Like, I got to do my own stuff, but I can't expect the results, because my biggest character defect I've found in the last 16 years is expectations. And then, so in AA, I've learned, and this is a whole nother, but I've learned that it's not, I am genetically dispositioned for alcoholism. And so, but it's not the last drink that gets you. It's not the drinking. It's that why you start with the first drink. Why you start, because an alcoholic can be genetically dispositioned and not go to the extreme. So I did it really well, but you don't have to. So it was me. I was so focused on what I thought my life was supposed to be that I forgot to recognize. I just had this conversation with my kids. It's so funny. I didn't recognize how good my life was. Mm-hmm. I had these beautiful children. I had this great husband. We were doing, we were building something that on a foundation of rock and not sand. Like, we were doing things, and, but it wasn't what I thought. I don't know. Like, and so, yeah. And it was just, and it's so funny because my husband always says, we'll be watching TV. I'm like, well, that guy's really good looking. He goes, yeah, he has dark hair. And my husband's blonde. Like, he's just still like, how did you end up? I have no idea.
I'm so done.
I was like, I don't know. He's my country boy. He was a townie in Bowling Green, Ohio. I went to school in downtown Pittsburgh, like in high school. Like, I have no idea how we ended up together. I mean, literally driving to his house the first time, it was second cornfield on the right. It's my parents' house. I was like, oh, no.
God.
Cornfield house, cornfield. Yep, the Batesons. Mm-hmm. No joke. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Still haven't figured that out. I think I married him for his parents, but that's a whole other story. So.
Only you. Okay.
But they're gone and I keep him, so I guess that's, that's not necessarily true. So he's still here, so I don't know. But it's just that one-on-one, because if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not learning, you're stagnant if you're not learning. Absolutely. And so it's constantly, and finding, I'm 52 years old and I'm still trying to figure out who the hell I am. And it's just, because every day you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to happen next. And so living every day to be the person that God expects me to be, and not limit myself with my expectations of what I think I can do. And that's just, because he has great plans for me. It's my own brain that limits me. And I'm really good at that.
We all are.
Oh, I know. It's that, and sorry for all the Vanessas out there, but I named my inner voice, and her name is Vanessa. And so when she's talking, and Crash the Chatterbox, I'm telling you people, and if you have a DVD player, I just found the DVD that from way back. Pastor Stephen's book of Crash the Chatterbox has changed I think, a lot of lives. I know it changed my brother's life. It helped him with sobriety. His sobriety, like, huge. And so, but it's that inner voice. It's that name. Like, so I can say, shut up, Vanessa. Because then it just shuts that voice down. Because that gives me the opportunity to recognize that is like that inner voice that's just talking to me. That's because I wouldn't smack talk that way to anybody else. Why would I do it to myself?
Yes.
And so if I name that voice, then I can tell her to shut up a lot easier because it's not talking to myself necessarily.
But I love the shut up, Vanessa.
Vanessa. So sometimes it's not that. Sometimes a little more colorful language, but that's okay. Those are the bad days.
No, I have that. I literally went through that. I want to say it was probably 2 years ago in therapy. We had to really work on how I spoke to myself because something I didn't realize was how mean I am to me. I might be kind on the outside, but every time I did the slightest thing like wrong, I leave the key, like misplace my keys. And I'm just going in on me. And yeah, that was something that I didn't even realize that I was doing because I've been doing it for so long. And so I actually have scriptures and words of, like, they're not really words of affirmations. They're just words that I call myself when I don't know what to say, or I'm having one of those days where I'm just like, okay, I feel like I just gained 10 pounds or I feel like I could have done something better. If you go in my bathroom, written all over the second mirror, you are beautiful. You are a child of God. You are made in God's image. Like, I literally need that. I have a full-length mirror in my room. For the longest time, I had Post-it notes everywhere. Like, these are things you have to really train yourself to do. And yeah, I don't think anybody is exempt. I have a Vanessa. She doesn't have a name, but like.
Oh, but you find the name. It'll come to you. Like like there is no question. And I've told this to people, and it's the names that people come up with are hilarious. It's so funny because everybody has that name, you know. Somebody referred to the movies Heathers today, so you know everybody. That movie is very poignant. But anyway, so it's a whole nother subject, but it is, and it's true because it's very interesting because, as you know, I just lost my father. It hasn't even been 3 weeks, and so, but in the last 2 weeks of his life, he was unable to speak. He slowly deteriorated physically, but his mental was still there. So we read the Bible together, and it frustrated me because everybody seemed to be talking at him instead of talking to him, and he was able to respond with nods, shakes, eyes. Like, he was able to respond with facial expressions better than most people can communicate with words. And so I spoke to him, and we found a verse that really spoke to both of us. It was Matthew 21:21. That will forever be my verse about if you believe that mountains can be picked up and thrown into the sea, then it'll happen. And I was like, okay, Daddy, you know what? We just need to pick up this mountain and throw it in the sea. And it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but it turned out the way it was intended to. And so through the challenges of the last few years with some challenges with my kid and just learning about myself and learning things that I had to learn the hard way, and God had a plan for it all. But I had to learn it the hard way because I needed apparently to be stepped on by an elephant, you know, in order to figure out. I can't just, apparently I don't do things easily, but I'm become so coachable that I see it, whether it's in my business, whether it's in my marriage, whether it's, you know, in life. I've just learned that I have to be open that I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. And I always can have something. And I learned that, you know, I can go into any situation, take what I need and leave the rest. Like, not everybody's going to have everything I need. So in the situation with my daddy, I came up with 3 major things that he taught me in my life because I am a daddy's girl. No two ways about it. We were both middle children. We were just always super close. And through reading the Bible, we came up with these things. And I said, I was like, well, it's all about perspective, isn't it, Daddy? And he said, he nodded, and I just said, if you know your expectations, you can meet them. If you don't know what your expectations, somebody's expectations of you are, you can choose whether you want to meet them or not. But if you don't know them, then you can't meet them. Like if you don't know what's expected of you, then you're gonna flounder. Mm-hmm. And then also to set your expectations of the people that you need to, and then always just to be kind, because he can be very, he was the smartest man I know. And so he could be very, I don't know what the word is. He can educate, but he did it with kindness. And he could be firm, but he always did it with kindness. And so those are the three things. And it was so funny because my niece and I were talking through the whole thing, through this. And I told her those were my three things. And she texted me after the funeral and she said, what were the three things? And so I texted them to her. And so it's just kind of like become that bonding moment. But those are things that, a million other things that he taught me. But it really comes down to that because it's a matter of perspective. And so I've learned I'm thankful for what I had, the years of hell I went through with my kid. And it was, you were there, But I learned that I can't choose when to trust. There's not, as soon as I stop trusting God is when the anxiety sets in.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. But I don't know whether I stress about it or not. So if I don't trust always, even though I'm going, what the hell just happened? I've got to trust. And so I can't imagine in my life living without that trust, because that day that I was driving to Gastonia down the highway at 2:00 in the morning, when I handed my will and my life over to the care of God, it was a huge relief. Because I don't need to figure it out. I need to work my ass off and be the best person I can be, because if I'm not living in his image, then I'm not being what he intended me to be.
Yeah.
And so I have to work very hard to be the best version of me that he created. But the results, like I said, the results are not up to me. Because I'm not going to understand it all the time. Like, I don't understand why my dad's gone. But the week that the kids came home from Kansas, they ended up with a house and a job to come home to. If that's not God and my dad, looking out for us, I have more angels at this point than I have support. But they're all looking out for us because they don't. And there was this Irish saying, and my grandmother's maiden name is O'Neill. My birthday, St. Patrick's Day, so I consider myself Irish, but there is Irish in my blood. And there was this saying, and I just loved that, and it just gave me a huge solace with the loss of my dad. And I think I did a little research, and it's kind of a combination of a couple different Irish blessings, but it's death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. And that's what I just think of. Like the people, like my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my grandmother, who I was super close with, my daddy, they've just slipped into the next room. Yep. And they will be there waiting for me in that next room when I get there. So we just take the time that we were blessed with, no matter how long and how short it is, and just find, because, and take those lessons and be better people. Because we just did the 3-year anniversary of my cousin who drank herself to death. And I'm very thankful I'm not that person. Because I would have been. If my family hadn't stepped in, I would have very easily been that person. So finding the blessings in all the things, like always finding the blessing. And that's how I raised my kids. And I remember one time Jonah was sitting there in a wheelchair because he had broke his ankle yet again skateboarding or whatever. And he was sitting in this wheelchair, and I was checking out at Ortho Carolina. And I said, okay, what's the blessing? And he struggled because skateboarding was his life. It was his outlet. It was everything. I said, what's the blessing? And he really thought. And he just said, well, I don't have to have surgery. There's the blessing. I mean, there's always a blessing to be found. And and I don't know if I told you. Did I tell you the hope story? Okay, so you were at my dad's funeral, and I will ever be grateful for that. But there's this ongoing joke that my brother's wedding shower.
Oh, you did when y'all were laughing. Okay,
yes. So there's this ongoing story about hope in my family. About my sister, it just did this really funny thing years and years ago, and she's like, "It says hope," and she's drunk. I'm just gonna follow what it is. It says hope. So it's just been this ongoing thing because whatever she was pointing at this wedding shower didn't even say hope. And so, but it's been this ongoing joke for 20 something, 25 years, whatever, how long my brother's been married, about hope. Hope is just been this ongoing word. That and 227, because we grew up at 227 O'Hara Manor Drive. So 227, we see it everywhere. And we looked up the meaning, and that has a huge meaning in our family. So, and so this priest at the funeral, for those of you who don't know, he goes and he addresses all of us. He addresses all of us, and he goes into it about loss and everything. And he goes, but then there's always hope. So there's 19 of us sitting in these pews at this Catholic church, and all of us are laughing. And I think he thought we were crazy because his whole sermon was about hope. And this word has just become so poignant in my family's life that it was just, I mean, and I walked out and I said to my siblings, if you didn't think Daddy was there, then you are crazy. Because he was like, here, there it is. So
yeah, that happened at my mom's funeral. I remember us talking about that because the exact same thing. My mother had like 4 verses that she always used to recite to us. And I kid you not, she had 2 pastors. It was Reverend Wright he's at Fountain of Praise now, but we went to South Post Oak in Texas. And then Marcus Cosby from Wheeler Avenue, another church in Texas that she went to. And they hit every single verse. And I'm like, Melissa, did you hear it? And she's just like, we're like, this could not have been more perfect.
No, and you can't, and it's so funny because, because like, even like just in the experiences I've lost, like I lost my grandmother way too soon, as close as we were. And I feared losing her so much. I forgot to enjoy her. Oh. So I learned that very, very early on. I was, Alex is 1. So that was 28 years ago. And so, I was in my early 20s, but she was my rock. She was everything. And so when I just remember just being so afraid of losing her, I forgot to enjoy her. So I learned that early, that you just enjoy every moment, with people. And so, and then my father-in-law had the very traditional funeral that devastated my children. And so then my mother-in-law died during COVID. So we had to wait for the funeral, and it was outside, and the sky was bright blue, and the breeze was going, and the flowers were beautiful. And it was just perfect for her because she wanted no fanfare. She was very, and my kids loved that because it was closed casket and everything. And so when, this one, it was just, it just was every situation of the 4 major losses that I've had in my life, significant. It's just, God's been there because he's made it to it was the right time, and it was the right place, and it was meant to be. And so it's just because you have to trust always. I mean,
absolutely.
I have to trust always. I'm not going to, and that's another thing. I am never going to tell anybody how to believe. I'm never going to tell anybody how to live because I don't know what their experiences are. I don't know what their faith, where they are in their journey. So I'm not going to assume anything. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'll give you my opinion. And like I said, in these conversations, I'm going to take what I need and I'm going to leave the rest. But I'm not going to tell you how to do it either because that's not fair because I don't know where you are. I'm not in your head. This is where we started the conversation because it's all, everybody hears. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. And that is because it's what you hear and what goes in is completely based on how you're wired.
You have to meet people where they are. That's what I always say. I saw a video a while ago, and she was talking about, and this was a Christian video, and she was talking about how you have to speak to people who are new to the faith a certain way. You have to speak to people who are mature and like really seasoned in their faith. You have to talk to people based on where they are. Basically, you can't, it's like trying to teach a third grade class physics. Like, no, keep it basic. But I mean, like, I think that's pretty much what you're saying. I think you hit the nail on the head. Something that you said that really stuck with me is the perspective and how all of these things, no matter whether it was with your family, with someone that you lost, God has always been changing your perspective throughout these situations. And I think that's a big thing that helps us build our faith is when our perspective shifts. And I've been having a lot of those lately. And it's so funny because I walked into church on Sunday and that was what Pastor Stephen started his sermon about. And he was like, the first thing he said, God's been changing my perspective and giving me so many new perspectives this week. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm sitting there like, me too.
Yeah.
But I think that as you open yourself up to God and what he has to offer and what he's trying to teach you in life, and you stop looking at everything as an attack because you don't understand why something happened or you don't like the timeline or it wasn't what you expected, then he's able to shift your perspective and really take you into a place where you're like, okay, God, I see what you're doing. Or maybe it wasn't for me to understand back then, but now I do. I had that like when my mom passed, and I don't say this very often because sometimes it feels very weird to actually articulate, but when she passed, I wanted to be angry and I wanted to cry. I actually went in my closet and laid on the floor prepared for like the waterworks to come. And they didn't. And I remember my dad called me and he was like, where are you? And I was like, I'm in my closet. And I'm in my closet and I'm crying because I'm sad, but I'm waiting for that fire to come through. And it never came through. I literally had peace. And the thing that I did not see or understand during that time was I had been praying and I'm like, God, get me through this. God, I don't know how you're going to get me through this. Like, I can't do it by myself. I need you to get me through this. That was how he got me through it. He gave me peace that I just didn't even understand. I was just calm. And like when I tell people I'm good, I was really good.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop there. He carried me through the service. He carried me after, weeks after. It was still there. And so I think now I have that understanding that this is what I actually asked you for. I just didn't expect you to do it. Mm-hmm. In that way, and I didn't expect for it to last that long to actually carry me through that season. And he gave me this other perspective that my mom being sick, my mom passing, as much as I would love for her to be here,
yes,
one of the blessings that came out of that horrible day is the fact that I gained so much faith and my relationship with him tightened so much that like it was like the starting point for where I am today.
Yeah.
It literally was.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because I was, and it got to it's so funny you say perspective because just very briefly, I was the first 13 years of my marriage, I was drunk. I mean, it was only the last 2 years was really bad. And even my kids will admit that. But as soon as I got sober, stuff like list. And I don't even know if I remember. Everybody's like, really? Because some people have like one of these things. Okay, Alex broke their arm and almost lost full use of their hand. Had to have multiple surgeries because it's a whole story. And then Kent was hit by the drunk driver. I was diagnosed with cancer. Jonah broke his collarbone and almost didn't graduate from high school just because of ADHD and dealing with his ADHD. And it's just like this series of things. And then my in-laws got sick. And then it's just like this series of things. And people are like, you know, it's kind of like how are you still standing? But somewhere in that mess that is just life. And these are major events. I mean, these are major, like, life-changing events, but we've had multiple of them. I mean, just getting sober is one. You know, it's just like, and it's like, God was like, okay, I'm going to need you to get sober now because you got some stuff coming down the pike that your family is not going to survive if you're not there. And so I did. You know, I figured it out. And, but it's when I had the why me, like, I don't know that I ever had it, but the potential of having the why me mentality is where I think people lose it. Like, it's like, why me? And they get, like, that's where you sit, like, that's where it would have sank. And it's, why not me? Because God thinks I can handle it. He's not going to lead me to the fire and then just, like, turn around. And it's kind of like, and I've just learned about buffaloes, that buffaloes, when all the other animals, when a storm is coming, all the other animals turn and run the other way. Buffaloes slowly trudge through the storm. And so I just think of myself as a buffalo, because God is with me trudging through the storm. And it's just one, like, some days it's 1 minute at a time, sometimes it's 1 hour at a time. And that peace that you talked about with your mom, it's just, I've had that last night, like this last 24 hours. I was so comfortable last night. And I think that was because I have not been, like, teary-eyed like that. Last night was a one-off, and we were all together. And so I think it was just a safe place. And so it's just been, I think I'm just exhausted. Because I haven't stopped very much since Dad passed, because anyway. And so, but it's to the point where that perspective thing has been so ingrained in me that when I told my kids when they were little, I was like, you can get any tattoos you want, but my name has to be in the first one. This is the rule. So Jonah calls me right before his 18th birthday. And he said, Mom, instead of your name, can I get your cancer surgery date? Because my cancer affected Jonah more than anybody. And I didn't realize it till later. And I said, absolutely. I said, that's a good. I said, but does my sobriety date mean more to you? Or does the cancer surgery? He goes, oh, the sobriety. Like, he was kind of used to that. The cancer was new. And so he has, his first tattoo is, and I bought it for him for his birthday, is my sobriety date in Roman numerals on his forearm. And he calls me the night before we were going to go. And he said, hey, Mom. And I said, yeah. And he said, I would like to add to my tattoo. And I was like, okay, what do you want to add? And he said, when we get there, I want you to write, change your perspective in your handwriting. And he has that in my handwriting under my sobriety date on his arm.
I love that.
So I wrote that down. Yeah, I wrote it out, and that's exactly, so it's my handwriting, and it says change it. He said, because that's the biggest lesson you've ever taught me, is to change my perspective.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And sometimes we do need a reminder. God has never, even for me, God has never taken me somewhere or opened the door where he did not sustain me. And I think that's a perspective and a lesson that we all need to realize and learn. At some point, you're going to have to just acknowledge the fact that if you were placing your life in his hands, he's never dropped you. Because if he dropped you, you wouldn't be standing here.
Right. No, and he never, and even when we fall, and that was the thing, when I was drinking, one of the first things I realized is I turned my back on God. He never turned his back on me. He never dropped me. I was just refusing to see him. I was refusing to let him take over my life, have my life he made me, so why wouldn't I give it to him? And I have, there's a leader in our company that she calls God Papa. And I just love that. And even when it comes to my kids, somebody, my friend Susie said to me one time, she said, God doesn't have grandchildren. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, God doesn't have grandchildren. So my kids, I gave birth to them, but they're not mine. They were given to me to raise and do the best I can, but only to teach me more lessons and do the best I can with them. Ooh, flipping myself in the face, but just doing the best I can on a daily basis, but they're not mine. I've given them back. It's not like, okay, God, these are my kids. I'm going to tell you how to, that's not how it works. Yeah. And he gives us life, and then he takes it back, and he takes us home, and that's where my daddy is. That's where my mother-in-law is. That's where my grandma is. They're all together. They're all just, and it changes your life into a new normal, and it changes your perspective. Because with my dad's story, which is very recent, but it is my recent story. So, he was healing. He was great. And one person made one mistake, and in 30 seconds, my entire life's family changed. So if your life can change, if one person's action can change 19 people's lives significantly for the rest of their lives on this earth, then why would we not try our hardest to be the best people we can be to each other through what he's taught us on a daily basis?
That's true.
So, I mean, because it's just not like the stress and the worry and all the stuff. You've got a plan, and we do have plans, but it's not like we're not going to enjoy today because we're so worried about tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's good to have plans. They just need to be flexible no matter what they are.
In perspective. It's all about perspective.
But it's all about perspective.
Every dime away for tomorrow, and you get hit by a bus, you didn't enjoy when you were here. Like, you know, so, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, it's just because it's a matter of perspective. And it's really
well, I do want to get back to one thing you did just say. And I love that you said that God does not have grandchildren. I just had that conversation with somebody today.
Oh, really?
And yes. And it made me think of how, and I don't even know why I'm saying this, but a lot of people go through life and they have issues with parents, grandparents, people in their family, people that they have met for a second. It does not matter. And I think that people need to realize and put into perspective, this is the first time on this earth. This is the only time we get on this earth. And we are all God's children. And I will say that when I really grasped that concept that I am God's child, but so are my parents.
Yes.
It actually humanized them and allowed me to understand them and see them in a way that I never had before. And it made me love them even more. Because then their mistakes were no big deal because I make the same mistakes because we're going through the same thing as far as being on this earth for the first time. They've been parents for the first time. Give them grace.
Oh, I raised my kids. I'm like, and they look at me and I'm like, I never had an 11-year-old before. And I'm like, even when I had the second 11-year-old, that 11-year-old was so different than the first one. Like, it didn't matter. And it comes back around because Jonah at 25 is doing things that, like, I didn't even meet Kent until he was 25, 26, somewhere around there. And he's an idiot. And so I'm like, and Jonah has been married for 3 years, has a child. And like, I'm like, so I have to say, when Jonah comes to us and needs something, I have to say to my husband, what were you doing at 24? What were you doing at 22? And he'll go, oh, like.
True.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard of Jim Rohn, but he's a
who?
Jim Rohn is his name. He's a motivational speaker. But anyway, he mentored my mentors back in the day. So like, he's just somebody took all his old tapes because he's been gone for a long time and put them on Spotify. So I just listened to them, and he just has a way. I just like him. He actually was Tony Robbins' mentor. So he took. Oh. Yeah. So okay. So he taught Tony Robbins, and then Tony Robbins took it to the next level with everything he does. So anyway. So he said one day, I was listening to these tapes, and it's pieces of different talks because it's literally cassette tapes. And he said, when God feels like you're ready for success, it will come. Mm-hmm. So, but you have to keep doing the work, because if you're not doing the work, and that comes back to you do the work and leave the results up to God. But you can work so hard, and the only way you're going to fail is if you give up. Mm-hmm. Because the success isn't going to come until God feels like all the pieces are put together and you're ready for it. So I know you've tried things like this before and it didn't necessarily work, but this time it's working because God feels like you're ready. Mm-hmm. But you can't give up. You can't just woe is me through life because it didn't go the way you thought it was supposed to go. And the two people, the three people actually I know that have died of alcoholism or is currently very scarily close, are people who live in the woe is me and like live in that victim mentality that my childhood was so terrible. You're 60 years old. Like, when are you going to give it up? You know, like, when are you going to adult up and just like figure out how to be you without that, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that's like for me and my disease, I have to realize that it's not an option for me. And so, but that's, you know, he's given me so many experiences, even up to the last 3 years after, like, I'm in my 16th year of sobriety, even up to this, you know, like, It's not my choice.
Yeah.
Not my choice.
Yeah.
But I am going to learn with it and grow from it because that's my choice.
Yeah. You keep saying something that I talk about on every episode. Faith is an action word. You have to move. God can say you're ready for this, but you have to take the first step and you have to trust in him. I feel like that should have been the podcast name. Faith is an action word. I talk about it so often. But I mean.
And it's true because if you like, no judgment, but it's when like, there's extremists in everything. There's extremists in politics, there's extremists in religion, there's extremists everywhere. And so the people who say that they're not going to do anything because God's just going to take care of it. It drives me a little crazy because I feel like it gives that faith a bad name. Because if you're not working and being kind and you know, knowing your expectations and doing the work towards what you want,
you're treating God like a genie, pretty much.
Yeah. Like you cannot sit on the couch, smoking pot and drinking beer and say God's going to take care of it. That's not the way it works.
No.
Yeah.
What God will do is change your circumstances and make it so that you have to get up and go do something.
Yeah. Because, and that's one of the kind of things in AA is you learn, you never pray for patience. Because you're not going to get patience. You're going to get
opportunity.
Yes. So, I mean, that was one that, you know, you just, and that's where, for the longest time, I was like, thy will be done was the only prayer I would pray. Thy will be done. Because I can't tell him what to do. I can't tell him, like, what, and then I was like, then somebody said, yeah, but you can make suggestions, like, let him know. I'm like, oh, you know.
You can ask, for sure.
You can ask, yeah. And so it is, you know, so it is just, you know, but ultimately it's thy will be done. You know, and it's just, so, I can ask, but he knows all. So it's just kind of like, and somebody asked one time early on in Elevation, they said, oh, when do you pray? I was like, when do I not pray? Like, in conversation. Like, that's, and it's,
I feel like internally at this point, I talk to him more than I talk to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then that's
like,
where
it doesn't work the other way
around. So it's me and God, and then when Vanessa sneaks in, that's when I tell her to chuck it, you know? So, yeah. And the other thing is, and, can't say what I actually, but I have said, and it's so funny, because I have just said, my F bucket is empty, because I have no more Fs to give. Because after this thing with Dad, I just like all those things that I thought I knew, like, are gone. So I don't care. Like, I have no more, like, you can think whatever, you can worry about whatever you want to worry about. You can think whatever you want to think. Like, coming on here, like, probably 2 months ago, I would have taken a shower, made sure my hair was done, and made sure everything, like, had a cute sweater on and blah, blah. I was like, sister, you get me, like, here I am. This is me at 6:45 at night, and this is what you're going to get. You know, and it's just, because if you don't like me how I come, then you don't have to like me, and that's okay. Okay, because there are people that do. And so you're just, you know, I am who I am. So
I love you just as you are.
Thanks. You know, I was on an AA meeting. It was a Zoom meeting, and my brother texted me in the middle of it because he was on the Zoom meeting, and he goes, "Don't be scared, but there's a cat on your cat is on your head." I was like, and I said, my cat is black. This is the neighbor's cat. Get it right. Yeah, he thinks he's cute. And I was like, so, yeah. So, yeah, no, I just come as I am. This is what it is.
That's all you can do.
It is all I can do. Because I am only doing the best I can, and that's all I've got. Because
I love that.
Yeah, that's all I've got is the best I can. And I can always get better, because I'm always going to learn. But right now, right here, in this moment, until I learn the next thing, I'm doing the best I can right here with what God's given me. And that's
absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I love this. This has been an amazing conversation. I kid you not. Like, you never know which way a conversation is going to go. And I think we hit a lot of very important topics. But I think the main topic here was perspective and just taking the first step and stop waiting for God to do everything and making sure that you're actually living your life and living in the blessing that he gave you. Because every day, like, we don't know when the last day is. And so
Right.
I think we've covered so much ground. It's just,
yes, fail forward. I mean, make a mess. He's going to help you clean it up.
Absolutely.
But if you don't try, then you don't know. I mean, like, there's just so much that, like, if you're not living your life to the fullest, and if you're not screwing it up, I mean, he's, like I said, he's never going to drop you. You can mess up, but you just gotta do the best you can.
Yeah. As long as you're being obedient and you are living for his will,
yes,
you will be fine.
Yes. And be kind, and that's the thing. Keep your perspective and be willing to learn and just be kind.